If you deem stock prices to be overvalued or in a bubble, do you think it's best to keep your money in cash while waiting for prices to come down to a fair price? Or would it be a better idea to invest this money in some way while waiting until stock prices are fair again and then sell the investment to buy the stocks?
Well, Charlie and I have had that discussion on a lot of things. We bought some stocks we really don't know that much about, but I'm not really comfortable doing that.
You're used to shooting fish in a barrel, but that's gotten harder.
We've got probably 10 to 15% of our total assets in cash beyond what I would like to have, just as a way of protecting the owners and the people that are our partners from ever having us ever get in a pickle. You know, we really run Berkshire to make sure that we don't want to lose other people's money who stick with us for years. We can't help what somebody does that buys it today and sells it tomorrow. But we've got a real gene that pushes us in that direction. But we've got more than we've got probably 70 or 80 billion, something like that maybe, that we'd love to put to work. But that's 10% of our assets roughly, and we probably won't get a chance to do it under these conditions. But conditions change very, very, very rapidly sometimes in markets, and we do have people that would like to join us, but the market option they have is just too great for them. And if they're publicly traded, I mean, they basically can't. They would have great difficulty, well, making a deal with us because somebody else would come along with using other people's money. It's, you know, we may be unhappy about the 70 billion, but we're very happy about the other 700 billion. So it's not like we should complain. We have a Class stock and a Class B stock. The U.S. government owns what I call the Class AA stock. It's a very special stock. They get a percentage of the earnings, but they don't own the assets. And they don't vote on who gets to run the place or anything else. But if the government wants to take, when I was first starting, they used to take 52%, the federal government did, of corporate profits. And they used to take 52%, the federal government did, of corporate profits. And they, as a AA stock, if they buy the U.S. Treasury, and they said this vehicle, given a name like SPAC or something even sexier, but and all it will do is it owns the future tax payments of Berkshire Hathaway forever. And how much is that stock now worth? And it'll pay a big cash dividend, and they'll go up as we retain earnings and build the company and everything else. Well, it's worth more if the tax rate is 25% or 28% or 52% than at 21%. They own a special stock, and when people talk about how it all gets passed through the customer and everything, in the utility business, it actually does. That's a special case, but it doesn't in most of our businesses. I mean, it's a corporate fiction when they put out statements about the fact that this will be terrible for all of you people. We pay more taxes. It hurts the Berkshire shareholders if rates are higher, and that may be quite appropriate. But to say otherwise is just, it doesn't make any sense. I would love to see the government actually issue. They could have, I mean, they could set up a company, just call it the Berkshire Hathaway Tax Company, and it would take all the taxes we paid every year. How much would they be able to sell that asset for? They talk about unfunded obligations of the government. That's an unreported asset of the federal government. They own part of Berkshire, and they get to determine how much. I mean, it's an interesting question.
Warren, when we spoke before the annual meeting, you said that it was okay if I asked a follow-up or two, and I'd like to take one of those right now. You said you bought some stocks that you don't know a lot about. What are they?
Well, I will not get into naming what stocks. And maybe there's some there that I think I know about that I don't know about. But we have bought stocks where Charlie and I mean, we know the business generally, but we don't have any insights. And they are, as a group, if I had told me I was going to be shot unless I got the best result, I would rather own those stocks than the treasury bills we own. But on the other hand, we work with the quantities of money where if we put $50 billion into things that I'm kind of so-so about, but that are better than Treasury bills. It doesn't. I'm not wildly comfortable about that, even though it can be undone. It's selling $50 billion when it's really attractive to buy something else. There's a lot of slippage that can happen in moving sums like that around. So that's something we talk about all the time. They're good companies. They're fine companies, but do we know something about those companies or have a way of evaluating that gives us an edge? The answer, I think. What do you feel about it, Charlie? We've talked about it a lot.
Well, of course, it's a lot harder, and I think one consequence of this present situation is that Bernie Sanders has basically won, and that's because everything boomed up so high and interest rates so low. What's going to happen is the millennial generation is going to have a hell of a time getting rich compared to our generation. And so the difference between the rich and the poor in the generation that's rising is going to be a lot less. So Bernie has won. He did it by accident, but he won.
The tax law can be changed tomorrow. And it can be done a lot of different ways. And it's been done a lot of different ways in the past. I can tell you, I can actually make a promise to society that 99.7% of what I have when I die will either go to philanthropy or to the federal government. And the federal government can actually determine the rules on that. And I would prefer that it would go to philanthropy. I think it actually will accomplish more utility if it goes to be used by some smart uses of the federal debt by $100 billion or something when I die. I don't think it makes a damn bit of difference. Whether the federal debt is $100 billion higher or lower, it won't change anything in the world. And at present days, it doesn't really save them anything because they can borrow $100 billion. It doesn't cost them anything anyway. But that condition won't prevail. But I would not regard it. I'm just talking personally. I'm not advocating this public policy, but I wouldn't if they took it all. It would not bother me. I mean,
I guarantee it won't bother you.
Yeah, says you won't know. If you decide, if American democracy decides that it's better to take it all, which I don't think they will, and I don't think they should, but nevertheless, so what? I would like to see it used to accomplish the most for humanity. I mean, and that means having smart people for humanity. I mean, and that means having smart people distribute it in a way, and who knows what the hell it would be 10, 20, 30, or 40 years from now. I do know if it goes years from now. I do know if it goes to the government, it reduces the national debt by that amount. Change the minimum wage laws or does anything else. I just think I don't think it changes whether they change the minimum wage laws or does anything else. I just think a little X and then some huge figure appears down below. I don't think it really. So I would prefer it be used privately, but that's really up to the people of the United States to decide through their